We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Friday, and we have Jace from Texas with us. And I reached out to him. We talked to Eric the other day, and I thought we'll get Jace back on. They were on together for a time a while back. Um, but there's so much stuff going on. He's from Texas, so we can talk about a lot of things happening in Texas. But of course, the big news this from yesterday or today, if you're listening to the podcast, it's yesterday. Um, the Republicans in the House of Representatives decided it was important to go through their rules committee for this upcoming big, beautiful budget. They had to do it at 1 in the morning. Apparently, they aren't so proud of what's in this bill. And they pushed it, and Donald Trump threatened and cried and whined. And it did pass in the House of Representatives. I'm a little surprised by that. Part of me is surprised, part of me is not surprised because they always kind of capitulate to Donald Trump. But it has passed in the House. And I know the Republicans are feeling pretty good about themselves, but I don't know that the Senate's going to do much good for them when it gets there. But who knows in this fucking day and age?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Mike. Yeah, freedom lover, what's his name? John Hawley. Is it what's his name? Hawley, what's his name?
Josh Hawley.
Josh Hawley. Yeah, freedom lover Josh Hawley, who, is a champion of, poor people's rights, is, saying we dare not do this. It's just the same old story. And I want to one of the biggest hypocrites is Chip Roy. He's not
Yeah.
my rep, but he's right next door. He's like all around me. And he always comes out, oh, we're spending too much money. We're spending too much money. No one will vote for it when it's a Democrat or a moderate, my Republicans. But, I thought the Hawks were gonna, they always talk a big game. They were gonna be different. Chip Roy, well, we're adding 4 bill, we're adding all this money to the deficit, blah, blah, blah. And it's like you totally sold out, dude. You totally went against everything you say you stand for. It's not surprising. But it's just, I mean, yeah, if the Democrats weren't dying, maybe we'd have a chance. Maybe the Republicans saw this as their last chance to get this through because it had Trump's name on it. But one vote. It was one vote, and they say, I guess one Republican almost didn't vote because he fell asleep. So, I mean, you're doing it 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, it's like what's that old saying, in the cover of darkness? Like, didn't the Cleveland Browns do that when they left Cleveland, originally went to Baltimore? Or was it the
I know
Colts?
the Baltimore Colts did that when they went to
Yeah.
Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, what are you ashamed of? Put it up there. And if I was a senator right now, I'd be a little pissed off because, Trump's saying now that he actually still wants to I guess there were a few Republicans voted against. He wants to primary them. Yeah, piss everybody off. Go primary them in the Senate. Let the Democrats win. Go ahead and do that. Go ahead and primary them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what's funny? I've been watching the Democrats, and I'm not sure how they feel about this thing passing. Most of them are saying, "Oh, this is bad for the country, bad for the people. We're upset about it. We're mad about it." But some seems to be some that are just giddy about it.
Yeah,
And the
they
reason
are.
they're giddy about it because they know it's political suicide. Go ahead, do it. Put some pain onto the country. It's just going to make it that much easier for us when we go to the midterms. I honestly believe that some Democrats want to see it crash and burn and have the Republicans' name all over it so they have an easier time come the midterms.
Well, I think the Republicans are living in a bubble. I mean, it's like, it's like the Trump bubble. He hears all their ass kissing. He doesn't like anybody when they call him out, like that reporter from NBC that called him out for the jet. Boy, he got pissed about that.
Yeah,
And it's you live in a bubble where I guess we were kind of in with Kamala and 2024. Oh,
right.
there's no way she can lose. No. They're believing their own shit. They have not the Republicans have not faced a reckoning in a while. So they feel, I mean, I don't think all of them do. I think some of them know that this is going to hurt them, but they've done a lot of this shit before and they've won re-election. So
Yeah.
it's like people, Trump was the worst, like you said, the worst candidate ever, but he won re-election. And
Yeah,
and the Republicans' biggest mistake. is that they think they're on Trump's timeline. They do not have the popularity or the cult that Trump does. They're sadly mistaken.
Right. Well, I think the Republicans are under the delusion, maybe it's a delusion, that they'll do this, and then by the time election comes around, people will forget about it. Now, common sense tells you they're not going to forget about it if they're getting crushed and they don't have money and they don't have health care. Logic would tell you they wouldn't forget about it, and the Republicans are going to pay. Now, I will say this. I said the very same thing when it came to Roe v. Wade. People will not forget about taking rights away from us.
Nope.
People will not forget about what they're doing to women. But guess what? They fucking forgot. Forgot enough to vote 49% for Donald Trump. So while I've said it before, I think the only way we can have Republicans step back from Donald Trump is an absolute catastrophe, an absolute devastating catastrophe that they can't talk themselves out of. It's unfortunate because it'll affect a lot of people that don't deserve it, but it just seems like that day after day. I've always said the Republicans are going to back off from Donald Trump because he becomes a liability as opposed to an asset. And I believe that made sense. That's logic. But how much more of a liability can he be to them if he forced them to sign a bill that's going to cost them their fucking jobs? And they still didn't.
Yeah.
I don't get that. I just don't understand that thinking.
I just think they think they're bulletproof. I think they think that, Trump's going to save them. I mean, they may also be thinking, it may have been Eric that said it, this is their kind of their last hurrah. They
Yeah.
may be doing this because because a lot of that stuff in that bill, don't let them fool you. They believe in this shit. They don't believe in helping the less fortunate out, or they wouldn't have voted for it.
Yeah.
And the deficit hawks wanted to cut even more. I mean, my God, they take away. I mean, they take away the stuff. I mean, it's like, Bill Gates said about Elon Musk that he's the richest man in the world, taken away from the poorest people.
Right.
It's like, when's enough enough? If I won like, $500,000 like in Vegas on a crap table or something like that, I'm gonna walk away. I mean, I say that and I'm here,
Oh,
but I
I
mean,
would.
when's enough enough? I mean, and these people that just, and I think, it was like the Trump thing or these businessmen that still work every day. That's what Congress, it's like they're making this extra money. They're not regulated. The only one that can regulate are themselves, and that's not happening. And it's a power play. They're addicted to power, and they just don't want to give it up. And that's why you have Democrats dying in office. You have, who was that state House member that went missing? They didn't even know she was missing for 3 or 4 days down here in Texas.
Right.
And
Right.
God, I mean, they got to do something about that. I mean, you're past 70 years old, you don't know what your life expectancy is going to be. It ain't like somebody like, 40, 50, 60.
Yeah.
10 years is a long time in a human life. And
Yeah.
it's just the Republicans may think, hey, this is our last hurrah to get this shit through and we're going to do it. So if I have to lose my job, so be it.
But the thing about it is if they get this through, it's going to be disastrous. And then when a new regime comes in, it's all going to be changed anyway. It's not like they can put this in place and it stays there forever. It's not going to, especially when it does incredible amounts of damage. When it does that damage, the Republicans are going to get aced out of their jobs. The Democrats are going to get control, and they'll just change everything fucking back. That's the thing about this is, um, as America and as Americans, we keep going through this tug of war thing. Republicans fuck it up. The Democrats try to bring us back from the abyss, and they get some momentum, and then the Republicans do it again. I mean, we the people are putting ourselves in this situation. We don't have enough common sense to do the right thing to get us out of trouble. We keep going back in the hole and then digging ourselves out. It gets frustrating thinking that there are people in this country that believe they're doing the right thing when they're doing absolutely the wrong thing.
They're doing the right thing for themselves. And that's always
Well, they
they're
think, but it's not the right thing for themselves. That's the thing. It
yeah.
fucks them up.
Well, in their mind, I mean, they think they're doing the right things for themselves because they live in a bubble. They live in the bubble like we were living in around the election because I mean, Kamala lost the presidency because Democrats didn't show up like they did for Biden. We both can agree on that, right?
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
So it's gonna take, Trump scared Democrats so much in 2020 that they showed up and of course stole it from him, of course, according to him, he's still talking
Yeah.
about. But the Democrats have got to do that again. And it's like they got to quit attacking each other. They got to quit, going after AOC or, Jasmine Crockett. Well, she's not ladylike. Well, who the fuck is ladylike up there now? Marjorie Taylor Greene? I mean, they got Democrats when the Democrat gets in there, I hope it's a big ass win. I'm afraid it won't be because I don't trust people, but I hope it's a big enough win where they can get some shit done. And I hope they get like the president, the vice president, speaker of the house, they're all Democrats. I hope they get like a fucking 100 electric cars apiece and
Yeah.
fucking, oh, that's a gift to America, like the Statue of Liberty and Trump's jet. You know, they're going to be doing shit like this too. And then when you may get Democrats up there that are doing what these Republicans are. That's no better just because there's a Democrat
Oh,
next to its name. So it's like, yeah, and they don't realize this, and maybe they do realize this. Maybe they realize, well, fuck, we're gonna lose anyway. Why not fucking go down with the ship? Because it's like I don't know why they haven't snapped out yet. I didn't think Trump would do this much damage this soon. I mean, I gotta hand
I
it to
didn't
him.
either.
I gotta hand it to him and the Project 2025 because all this shit. I mean, they're going after porn and they're going after all this shit. These
Yeah.
freedom-loving Republicans, free markets and all that shit. Now they're, telling companies how to do their shit. They're banning foreigners from, universities. I mean, my God, when did Putin take over?
I will say this, though. I think we were right about Elon Musk. I think the bromance between he and Donald Trump are
Definitely.
over. He's going on doing interviews. He looks like a whipped puppy. Uh, he's getting devastated. And I don't know that he understands, as smart as he claims to be, he can't dig his way out of this. Tesla's fucking cooked. He's cooked. Now, he may still have a ton of money, but his image in this country, in the world at large, is shit. By doing what he did, somebody asked him, what you did in politics and what it's done to your reputation and to your businesses, it wasn't worth it. He didn't say yeah, and he didn't say no. He didn't know what the fuck to do, that awkward son of a bitch. But he's learned a lesson, I bet, today. I bet he's learned a lesson because Donald Trump has kicked him to the curb, and that Donald Trump just does what Donald Trump does. If you're no use to him anymore, you're gone, and that's what Elon Musk's situation is. We've got other things causing riling things up, and he doesn't need Elon Musk anymore. And Elon Musk is expendable.
Trump's like that child that, sees a flashy new toy and like, oh,
Yeah,
plays it for a little while and breaks it. It's like Rick Wilson said, everything Trump touches. And I mean, he broke Elon Musk. I mean, I hear this all the time from MAGA people. Well, you progressives used to like Elon Musk. Oh yeah, I used to like Elon Musk a lot because I was miss I it was a total. I mean, I see my old Facebook post about what he supposedly did, but all he did was buy stuff. But I
yeah.
can but I can make a change, unlike MAGA, by somebody's actions. See, that's the difference between us and them. Trump, no matter what he does, they'll defend him.
Right.
Progressives are like that. We're not like that. And and they go, what made you not like him? I go, his actions, what he did, when he said that the world has too much empathy. I mean, my God, what kind of sick fuck is that? I mean, I mean, come on.
Well,
I
what's
mean, that's
ridiculous is
literally saying you piss on your neighbor, you don't help him out.
what's ridiculous about this is he was saying that empathy is weakness. Now
Yes.
he's going all over the fucking media looking for empathy. That pussy ass bitch.
Yep.
Um, Mike Johnson said something that we've talked about before. They were talking about how the Republicans always talked about the Biden crime family, and now we have Donald Trump doing what he's doing. How do you square that? And this is what Mike Johnson said. Mike Johnson said, "Well, It was all hidden. It was all under the cover of darkness. Donald Trump's just doing it out in public. Oh, so that makes it legal now. Last night, Donald Trump had a little secret dinner party. Nobody knows what's being discussed there, but it was all regarding his crypto meme coin, which is worthless. Anybody who's invested in it has lost money. But the point of it isn't for the people investing to make money on that crypto coin because they won't. It's a way of feeding Donald Trump money so they can get influence and make it appear to be legal. Well, it's not legal. It's absolute grifting. So they have this meeting, and people are given 200 million here, 50 million here, 100 million there about a crypto coin that is virtually worthless. To put it this way, the first 25 people who invested in that crypto coin, 18 of them have already sold it, got the fuck out of it. Because I think I saw a stat. If you invested $13,000 into his crypto coin, it is now worth 350. So these people who are big money investors knew better than to think this was going to make money. They did it to illegally run money to Donald Trump so they could gain some influence. And again, it's right out there in public, so apparently it's okay. But this is one of the most embarrassing things that we've seen a president do. I mean, you're probably not old enough, but back when Spiro Agnew ended up having to resign, he was getting money from somebody on the outside. It was like $20,000. He almost went to jail. He maybe did go to jail for a time, and he was the vice president of the United States. That isn't 1/10 of what Donald Trump is doing right now.
Yeah, every fucking week it's something else. Like, wasn't he selling like those cards of him as a cowboy or a
Yeah.
spaceman?
NFTs, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and I was and the media is compliant in this because they sane-wash it. They were doing an article about Don Jr. about how he's, meeting, of course, when Hunter did it, he was trying to, blackmail them for money. But when Don Jr. does it, he's getting business in his father's name. Yeah, the
Yeah.
way the media portrays it, they sane wash this shit. So average Joe goes out there and watches it and it's like, oh, okay, so he's a good businessman. If you're not fucking paying attention, and that's what, they want you to do is pay attention. And when they
Yeah.
say, oh, he's doing it in public, he's not hiding it, that is a signal to their base. That is their argument. That's
Yeah.
exactly what they do. And we both know it's full of shit, but that's the way they look at shit. And if Don says it, hey, the Trump says it, then that's what they mean.
Well, yeah, that's true. You brought up something when you're talking about the media. You were bringing up this Jake Tapper thing and how frustrated you were by that. Jake Tapper is a worthless piece of shit. He's not a journalist. He's a hack writer, and he comes up and he does this thing about Joe Biden, his cognitive ability, and all the things that were going on. And it's a big deal. Were they hiding this? Were they hiding this? My point is, who cares at this point? Joe Biden's not the president. He's a private citizen and he has some medical issues. This is all a distraction from the things that are actually happening by the sitting president. And I'm tired of the fucking media accommodating Republicans and doing that.
Yeah, and CNN's truly trying to sell this book. They're trying to make it more, than it really is. And you hear and I'm hearing what really pissed me off is Beto O'Rourke was talking about something. I may have mentioned this to you before. Sorry, Beto, I voted for you twice. You haven't won anything to be saying shit.
Right.
Biden gave his service to all that, and you're just sweeping another. And that other guy, who's your boy Phillips, your representative there,
D-
Phillips.
Dean
Told you I
Phillips,
was
yeah.
right. Told you that
Yeah.
Jake Dean Phillips. And then Jake
Yeah.
Tapper said, well, I called Laura Trump and apologized. It's like, Jesus, dude. You're writing this book, and if it was like, it's kind of like reminds me of the Bob Woodward book when all the shit with Trump was going on that he knew.
Right. Right.
If Biden was such a if Biden was in such dire straits, why didn't you expose it when it happened?
Yeah.
Because you wanted to write a book about it and make money. You could give two fucks about the country. I'm sorry. If I voted for Biden and I was covering him and I saw this shit going on, I would do what a press person is supposed to do. I would expose that.
Well,
And
and
maybe
that
you
that's
get
ex
that there, but now the horse done left the fucking barn. He's gone. Why do we worry about it now?
well, that's the point. Jake Tapper would like us to believe that he's some sort of journalist. But a journalist, if you have a
No.
story, you report the story. Like the other guy from Watergate, Bob. He's not a
Woodward?
journalist per se anymore. He's an author, so I don't excuse him for sitting on shit. But I'm more perturbed about Jake Tapper because he sits up there every night allegedly telling us these stories, and he's holding back some important things. If Joe Biden was not cognitively able after the second year, then I would have been the first one to say, step down, Joe, let Kamala take over. And had that
Yep.
happened, it might have been an entirely different situation.
Yeah, they didn't do themselves any favor with Kamala not letting her be herself. I
Right.
always kind of look back on this. Maybe he should have stepped down and let her take over. You know what I mean? But, that horse is in the barn, kind of, gone. The horse has left the barn, like this. But, all I see every day is just how bad of a guy Joe Biden is, that this is a guy that gave his service. He's lost his son, he's lost a son, he's lost a daughter and a wife. The guy's been through hell. Now he's facing terminal cancer. And you kind of hear this stuff and they're still going after him. They want to
Yeah.
prosecute Jill because she didn't do this. And even Trump said, well, I think it's elder abuse. I mean, these people have no dignity. They just, when somebody did that, I remember when Reagan got Alzheimer's, and I remember a lot of people didn't like Reagan. You know, he wasn't in there anymore. He did a lot of damage, yeah, whatever, but he's still a human being. But these people are
Yeah.
not capable of doing that. It's just always a grift for them. And the Democrats like Beto and some reporters, they're falling for the trap because they're giving an audience and they're talking about this. So it's just more distractions. It's just more distractions against Trump. You could look at Trump right now. The other day that he was about to walk into a wall, Mike Johnson had to show him where to go. I mean,
Yeah.
that shit happens all the time. I
Yeah.
mean, and I remember,
If Joe's cognitive ability is so important, wouldn't it be more important about the cognitive ability of a sitting president who's calling the
yeah,
shots? But we ignore that. We don't say that's what I'd love to ask Jake Tapper. What about what you got going on now? How can you ignore that when it's clearly obvious, but you can try to make money off of Joe Biden when he isn't a factor anymore? Joe's not a factor anymore. I'm sorry to say it, but he's not. And why are we wasting time on it? What difference does it make at this point? I mean, people who said that Ronald Reagan had Alzheimer's. Okay, well, he's not president anymore. So what? The Republican Party fucked up by not doing something about it. And if what's said about Joe Biden is true, then the Democratic Party fucked up. Make them pay. But to go back and try to make this a big deal, this is fucking ridiculous. I'm tired of it.
don't you remember back when Jake Tapper was going to be in the debate that didn't he moderate that first one with Trump and or
Yeah.
that only one
Yeah.
with Trump and Biden?
Right.
Or did he do the Kamala one? I forget. So he's the guy that's supposed to be impartial. And at the time, he's writing this book about Biden. It don't care if it
Yeah.
was Kamala or Biden. He's not
No.
partial or impartial. He's doing a hit piece on Biden, and that's exactly what it was. It was a hit piece. And I can guarantee you that a lot of people are doing shit for Trump right now, probably more than Biden. Because
Yeah.
Biden still got shit done. He got shit done for the people. This shit is just another, this big beautiful bill, it's just another cash grab. So
Yeah.
he's made the oligarchs happy right now and the rich happy. Who owns the media? The oligarchs. So
Yeah, what do you think is going to happen with this big budget bill? I'm a little surprised it passed the House. after I found out Donald Trump was in threatening people and such, and knowing how big of pussies the Republicans are, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Um, but do you think the Senate is going to be as complicit with Donald Trump as the House is? Or are they going to play this a little stronger? I mean, we know at least a couple of Republicans strongly don't like this, and they shouldn't because it's going to kill their fucking futures.
Well, as long as those Republicans just don't write a strongly worded letter like, Schumer,
Yeah, don't
maybe they'll
write a
stand up
strong.
to it. But yeah, I think it'll eventually pass. There's just too much in it, but there's going to be some changes. And what I want to know, I want to see Josh Hawley. I want to see if he's going to be a bigger man than Chip Roy, because Josh Hawley was sitting there telling well, listen to Trump about the Medicaid, Medicare, not cut it and stuff. It was already in the freaking bill. I mean, that was one
Yeah,
of the biggest things they're going to do. They got to do that because they can give these tax breaks, and our taxes are going to go up again. They're going to be permanent, and it's just like, I mean, I think Rand Paul will be one to watch. Ted Cruz will bend over for Trump like he always does.
yeah.
I don't know. They can get all the Democrats in there, and I remember you said something about, I think it was you and Eric said something about Fetterman. I don't know about that guy. I don't think he's well mentally. I
No, I
don't
don't
think
either.
he, I don't think he knows. I mean, it's just the guy that I saw on that plane attacking that. I mean, if that was like my father or my, uncle or something, I'd want to look out for them. But, they're actually courting him. The Republicans are because they know how unstable he is. And if he needs to
Yeah.
get help, he could have complications from a stroke. Who knows? But it's going to be, and it's funny how we always talk about it's going to be Republicans that impeach Trump and, save the day or whatever. Maybe it'll be the Republicans that save this bill, but I don't know. I think the Republicans, they'll do backdoor deals and they'll eventually get something passed. It may not be this one, but it'll still be devastating.
What do you think about what I was saying about the Democrats, in that the Democrats are kind of hoping it passes? They're not worried about the people. They're worried about the catastrophic disaster that's going to be left by the Republicans. And they see that as an opportunity to even win bigger in the midterms. I get, these people are all very self serving. They really only
Right.
care about their keeping their jobs. So it's kind of like what I said when Donald Trump won in November 5th. I got the sense with Democrats they were kind of pissed and kind of confused and kind of surprised. And they kind of just said, they stepped back, didn't do anything, and basically said, well, that's what you voted for. Good luck with that shit. And I get the sense, too, with this bill, if it passes, they're going to relish in the fact that people are going to suffer.
But are they, okay. Yeah, I get that, but they're going to do that. But are they going to do anything with it? I mean, yeah, people are going to suffer. Yeah, this is our opportunity to do it, but are they going to do anything with this opportunity they got? You know, they were happy when Joe Biden stepped aside and Kamala got, up there,
Yeah.
and I still believe that it's the sexism and, and I think I blame more Democrats on there for not showing up for him like they did for Biden, and a lot of that sexism and, racism because I don't know what the Democrats do because the Democrats, I don't know. I'm not I'm not as optimistic about the Democrats as I was a few years ago
I'm not
because I mean,
either.
yeah, they got a lot of stuff done, but it's almost they're still playing by the rules like, about in the movie The Patriot, how, the British would sit there and march, in order and stuff, and then Mel Gibson's group, they'd be on the side shooting them. And
Right.
the British were just like appalled, like that's not active war. I mean, it's war.
Right.
So the Republicans are like, Mel Gibson's group, and we're like, and the Democrats are like the British. We're just sitting there, doing the way the old school was, and maybe that was one of Biden's biggest faults is that he was too old school, that he wouldn't do stuff. Who knows if Obama would have been president and they'd had January 6th happen, he would have put, who was his attorney general on there? I bet he would have done something about it, not Merrick Garland. But you get
Wow.
that old guard, and like you said, it's typically old white men, and then you run out the AOCs and the David Hoggs. I mean, your party's going to die. And
Well,
I was,
yeah, well, the Republicans, we know they're divided. And when we were looking at this bill, they were divided in three ways. They had the hardcore Trumplafucks that will vote for anything. You had the even harder core people that didn't want to vote for it because it wasn't bad enough. And then you had a few people that knew it was going to be political suicide and didn't want to vote for it. But still, in the end, they brought them together to vote for this thing. They just slipped by, but they voted for this thing. Democrats, on the other hand, do the exact opposite because they are divided too. You have the normal Democrats and the far left Democrats, and maybe some more right leaning Democrats, and they have a tough time coming together. So, like you were saying, I have less confidence in the Democrats at this point. The only saving grace for the Democrats might be that the Republicans bury this country and we have a big steaming pile of economic bullshit when it's over, and they're the only ones that can be blamed. So then the Democrats win by fucking default.
you know, what sucks about it is that I'm 53. I'm about 6 years away from, retirement. And it's like, I I was always told as Gen X, like you were told, as a boomer, that Social Security won't be there. I'm not relying on Social Security. I have, other means and stuff. But it just sucks that, my so-called golden years are gonna be this way. But it's really gotta suck for somebody in their teens and 20s and 30s that's gonna have to put up with this shit out. Yeah, because it's like, I look at my life, there's more behind me there, there's more of a road behind me there is in front of me.
Right. Right.
And it's like, and I think about, I got, I know people, my friends' kids and everything, they're younger, my niece and nephew, and I just would hate to see what they have to go through because I think that, I don't know, it's like I didn't have to worry about that shit. I could go and make a good living. Was I rolling in money? No, but, I was optimistic about the future. Maybe they are too. But, I was listening to guy talk about that America has an aging problem is that they don't want to talk about what needs to be changed with Social Security and all that stuff. This is not cutting it like the Republicans want to do and they do it
Right.
away. But this stuff is we take care of the current generation, older generations on the backs of the younger generations. So we're leaving this stuff and we're gonna fucking, not me and you, of course, but boomers that voted for Trump, Gen Xers that voted for Trump, they're gonna create this for their kids. And of course the Don Juniors and Barons are gonna be fine in the world, but the normal kids, it's gonna really fucking suck. And like I said, if I live another 40, 50 years, I'll be, very fucking old. But the ones behind us, man, I mean, but what do? We still elect Schumer up there. We do all this shit. We're closing it off to David Hogg because he wants to make some changes that fucking are very well needed. It's like,
Well,
so we got to have that conversation to where I don't know who's leading the party myself. I hear
no, I don't either.
AOC. Her and Bernie are out there, Bernie, but Bernie's 85. AOC, I don't know if she wants to be president. But I mean, I'm optimistic about Pete. I think we're past the point to where they'll vote for him for being a gay man because he's white.
Yeah,
So I hate to
maybe.
say that, it's like, well, he's white, so I'll vote for him. He's gay, well, he's white, I'll vote for him. I mean, that's what you kind of got to look at. Kamala was a great candidate. She should have, won bigly. And now we got to go back to status quo. Newsom was a disappointment. So maybe a Pete, but it's got to be, we've got to start. I mean, we're coming up on the midterms. I mean, it's, over 2 years away, but man, they're going to be here before you know it. And I don't see
Yeah.
any leak. I still see Schumer writing his, well-worded letters and well-meaning letters. I see Hakeem Jeffries, he kind of stood up today and says, why do you call that? Don't call that guy out or call me out for something. Okay. I like what I'm seeing in them. I don't
Yeah.
think. I don't give him too much credit. I don't give him too much thing against Biden, is because I think Pelosi, to a point, is still running that party, that side of it. But he needs to step out of there, and we need to get leadership in there because, I mean, if the Republicans do try to steal the election, we got to have, younger generations fighting this. We don't need, Ulysses S. Grant from the Civil War coming to fight. We need young
Yeah.
soldiers. We don't need the old guard.
The Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, that's a big issue right now. It's a big issue to you because you're looking at retirement. I'm in retirement, so it's a big deal to me. But as you mentioned, when I was in my 20s or 30s, people would come to me and say, yeah, you aren't even going to get Social Security by the time you're old enough to get it because it'll be gone, it'll be busted. Well, here I am at 65 and I am getting Social Security. But at the time they were telling me that in my 20s and 30s, I didn't understand what Social Security really was. I didn't fucking care. That was
No,
so far in the future, I didn't even care about it. And while it's a big issue for everybody, I think a lot of young people aren't even thinking twice about that. They can't worry about Social Security because they got to find enough money to fucking rent an apartment. That's the problem. You've got to put them in a better position so that they can have a better life when they get to be our age. But, you know, talking to them about Social Security doesn't mean anything because it doesn't affect them unless, it affects their grandparents or something.
yeah, I'm where I work. They're going to be closing some schools, and it goes to our state funding, which the legislature here. We have a House and a Senate, of course, like everybody else. Well, the Senate's
Right.
run by Dan Patrick, so that tells you as crazy as they are. It's the direct
Yeah.
opposite. The House was kind of the normal kind of one where they had people that were Republicans running it, but they were more moderate. And I don't care what, I mean, I know a lot of people say moderate's a bad word. I don't fucking think it's a bad word at all. I think you
No.
got to have moderates, but you also got to have your, partisans too. But you got to have moderates because this got to because if there's two partisans fighting, they're not getting nothing done. And that's what one thing great about Biden was is that he could work with the other side, old school. And I know today, late in time, it's not like oh moderate that's a weak ass bitch. I don't agree with that myself. I think you should be strong in what you do, but I think you should also be open to compromise. Compromise was crazy, no, something there. But they had a thing where they wanted to give these students like 400, I think $400 more per student every year because when you do that to a student, it does a lot of stuff for the school, the construction, there's a lot of shit that goes on behind they think that, they build these and some of these, I see some of these buildings are, big and magnificent and stuff, but they last forever because the school I went to was built in the 70s. And it was, at the time, but it's still there. It's built well. It's not a cookie cutter like home what they do.
Right.
And so what they did is that the House wanted to give them $400. The Senate was like, well, no, 55 is enough. A little more money. So the Senate, the House had all these things do it. Well, since the House impeached or convicted Ken Paxton on the what he was doing last year, and they weren't passing Greg Abbott's um, voucher scheme. So what they did is he primaried those guys and got them kicked out of there. So the House used to be a buffer for the, Senate, so you'd get some stuff done.
Right.
Well, now the House pretty much bailed on what they had. So instead of the schools getting like $400, which the state can't afford, and it's much needed, it's gone down to 55. And when you talk about schools closing, and that has something to do also with, kids not being able, young families not being able to get houses because a lot of the schools that are closing are older neighborhoods. The
Right.
older people stay in those neighborhoods or they get bought out by what, like, those
Hedge funds.
rental places. So you don't have a young couple that can go in there to an elementary school. And it's an older house, it could be, 40, 50 years old. They can't do that because they can't afford it. And so if there's not any new kids going to those schools, of course attendance is going to drop.
Right.
But you got to invest in the country. You got to invest in your country, your state, your local, whatever. And that's why schools are closing because they don't invest back into the community.
You know, I think I think I mentioned this yesterday. Um, I think there's a false sense of security with the people in this country. We were all worried about the tariffs. We were all concerned about the catastrophe that would happen because of it. And then Donald Trump comes out and says, well, I'm going to pull back on the tariffs on China. It's only going to be 30%, which is still astronomical, still going to have an impact. But I think people think we've gotten past that potential disaster. And I still believe that we're going to have some serious pain because of what's gone on with those tariffs and the slowing of ships, even stopping the ships for a period of time. That's going to leave a dead spot on the shelves and what people can buy, and that will indirectly raise the cost of virtually everything. I feel like we need that pinch from the tariffs, and we need some of these red states who really count on Medicaid more so than even blue states to have a bunch of their people kicked off the um, medical rolls before they start seeing a different side to what's going on. I think a lot of these people still believe that it's only going to hurt the Democrats and not the Republicans. It's actually going to hurt the Republicans more than anybody.
Well, if the tariffs don't do it, the hurricanes will,
Yeah,
because we both know down here, I mean, we've been very lucky in San Antonio that it's been, God, been many years since, but there's only a 2 hour drive between me and the Gulf of Mexico
right.
that are there. So if one came up this way, it would, wipe me out. I didn't got a lot of money. I'd like to rely on FEMA that my tax dollars go somewhere. He's fired the head of FEMA. He screwed Oklahoma. They saw the Red River was rising, and those people got done. And I'm old enough to remember back when the Republicans were upset about Biden supposedly not helping North Carolina, which he did. But now, I mean, it's so underfunded. FEMA is not FEMA. So you want to talk about red states hurting? Alabama, Florida, Texas, Louisiana, you know, and I don't know about you, Mike, but it's getting hotter. And that Gulf's going to be warmer. And these
Yeah.
storms, they're saying that they're bigger than Cat 5s that they can't even identify. My God, bigger than a Cat 5? That they're so massive now that you can't do it. And so that'll get them. But yeah, I don't know. I think you're right about that false sense of security because I admit I was kind of like that. Oh, okay, well, it's back on. But I read today that Greenland has made a deal with some European countries for their
Yeah,
mineral
they did
rights.
it.
And that's very,
They sold the mineral rights to the EU, and that was the only reason why Donald Trump wanted that. That was a way to ace out Donald Trump. And once again, Donald Trump fucking loses.
but you think about that now. He still tries to invade them. The EU is going to step up for them now. So they were very smart doing that.
Yeah.
They're going to have protection on that. And there's another thing. You don't hear about the Panama Canal anymore. You don't hear about Greenland. He's never fucking serious about anything.
No, he
It's
never
it's
follows through with anything.
like the fucking wall in Mexico. He didn't ever fucking paid for that shit. It's just like everything's a fucking distraction. I mean, he has worse ADD than I do, man. I mean, I would never make a good president because I'd be probably batshit crazy as he is. But dude, there's something wrong with him he's a man of 70, what, 78, 79.
It's going to be
I mean,
79 next month.
yeah, when he have his fucking parade, is that still on?
Far as I know, it's still on. And, there was a time when I said that'll never happen.
Hmm.
But right now, I'm hoping it's going to happen. And the reason I'm hoping it's going to happen is because we know Donald Trump will fuck it up. It will be a shitstorm. There will be protest. And like I said before, you take all this military personnel and all this military equipment and run it down a street in Washington, D.C. with Donald Trump sitting there in his little crow's nest. That sounds a lot like a target to me. That's incredibly dangerous. And since we have no national security or no real protection within the FBI or the DOJ, I'm not going to be standing in that area when it happens.
Well, Christy Nome can dress up and, act all like, Insurrection Barbie or whatever. Or that was Martin
Yeah.
Taylor Green. Yeah, the Secret Service has got to be flipping out, man. If I was in Secret Service, I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, that's, and he doesn't realize too that when he does shit like this, he's putting others in risk too. I mean, he's going to destroy the streets.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna fuck up states. They're gonna have to fix those. That's gonna be more money. But no, let's make sure that, we fire the best of among us in the government. That's what they don't realize too, is that all this damage he's done. Yeah, we may have some deals with China and stuff like that, but they're not buying Texas beef anymore. They're buying Australian beef.
Right.
There's probably agreements that go back to Nixon that were destroyed with this shit. I mean, it's like, China is weaning themselves off America. And if they cash in those T-bills or whatever, I mean, we're really fucked. You
Yeah,
want
we're
to talk
really
about,
fucked.
you think, the depression was bad, this will be nothing. I mean, the depression will be nothing compared to this because it'll literally shut this country down.
Well,
And
you mentioned the storms and how
yes,
FEMA's basically non-existent anymore. So all these states, these red states that will need help, won't get help. Arkansas has been trying. Sarah Huckabee Sanders has been begging him for money, and he won't give it to him. Um, we had those tornadoes going through Kentucky and a couple of other states, and 25 people died in horrible disaster. And of course, FEMA's not there for them either. But another factor tied to Elon Musk and Donald Trump is all the firings with the National Weather Service. So I
yeah,
was reading a story with all these tornadoes coming through Kentucky and elsewhere in that area. There was no overnight warning because there's nobody working there anymore at night.
I believe
So
it.
they aren't even getting. They are not only getting put in the line of disasters, they're not even getting a warning that it's coming. That's why 25 people die as opposed to what normally happens. People get the fuck out of the way. They don't know to get out of the way because Donald Trump has stolen that fucking warning system.
Yeah, I remember I grew up in Missouri. I remember I was somewhere and we were staying in a hotel and we had like tornadoes come in and boy, those sirens were going off. I mean, they're a good thing to have. I mean,
Yeah,
we used to have them down here in Texas. I mean, they told me, I've been living in San Antonio for well over 30 years, that they had them back here, they had them back then because I guess they kind of you just kind of think, oh well, we got, more technology for that stuff. But he's firing everything and it's going to take years to build this shit up. And if I'm a kid coming out of college and I got my degree in cybersecurity, I don't want to go work for the fucking government
no,
because it's like they're going to be begging for people. The next administration is going to have to spend big to get shit back. But I mean, that's all Trump's ever done in his life is fire people. You watch The Apprentice, that's what it's based on. He got off on firing people. I fired
right.
5 people in 1 week one time when I was a manager in payroll because I had to, not because I wanted to, because I had my upper management had made me do this stuff. I didn't enjoy a bit of it, even though they
No,
may have
it's
all
not
deserved it.
pleasant.
I didn't enjoy a bit of it, and that's why when I was watching The Apprentice. And I always kind of looked at Trump as kind of like, oh, okay, he's at, because, I used to watch wrestling. Oh, he's at wrestling. That's cool. He's doing this. That's cool.
Yeah,
But like when he became the nominee, the Republicans were like, this has got to be a joke. I mean,
yeah,
he's up there doing this stuff. But the people that vote for Trump think a lot of them think wrestling's real. You look at Trump, he's like, and you see him in that video he did with like the Beach Boys or him like Elton John playing piano. I
yeah,
mean, that's what they do to a character of like wrestling. That's like Hulk Hogan going out there and, tearing off the roided up body and, listening and stuff. It's all a show. It's like a freaking wrestling rally. USA. I mean, it's like a truck pull. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And they always have this thing about Trump is that, oh, he's an outsider. Bullshit, he's an outsider. And it's like I just never could understand that crowd identifying with that man because that
yeah,
man has just ripped off. He's been a grifter his whole life, and he
yeah.
was a
He really
joke.
has. And
And the media
You know,
sandwiched him with The Apprentice. Oh, look, he's a good businessman. It's on NBC.
yeah, he's not a good businessman. And I think any businessman, including Mark Cuban and others, have said, no, he's not a good businessman. I don't care who you are or how smart you are. You don't file bankruptcy 6 times and know what the fuck you're doing. I mean, let's be honest. Donald Trump, we don't know what his credit rating is, but it can't be very good if no bank in America will lend him money. Uh, and it's gotten so bad now that he's dropped the credit rating of the entire fucking country from a triple A to a double A1. Never in the 108 years that they've been keeping this information has it ever dropped below triple A. And then we get Scott Bessent coming out and saying, well, it's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal. Well, the stock market dropped by 900 points the day after that happened. So it is a big fucking deal.
Not a big deal to billionaires and stuff, but
No.
I'm seeing something too, and I see it on TikTok a lot. You get caught in an algorithm or what it's called.
Yeah.
And I was looking up something, and this guy was talking about, credit card, companies suing you and stuff. And it literally was like the Donald Trump handbook. It's like you keep them so busy with, paperwork and making them look for shit that they can't do it. I mean, we've become like the Donald Trump of, not paying our bills. It's like, yeah, and granted, I know there are people out there that can't afford it, have to do bankruptcy or whatever. But this was like literally like something I'm surprised Trump University didn't do. Well, you just answer this. You don't have to get a lawyer. I used to be a lawyer. You just, make them try to do all this. Don't say anything over the phone. I mean, it was like, wouldn't it be easy just to work out a payment plan and pay them off?
Yeah.
I mean,
You would think
I've
so.
well, I've had that in the past, and I've gotten in over my head on some shit. I'm a dumbass sometimes. So yeah, and I've worked with them, and but it's just like it's just like a lot of people look up to that. I mean, they don't look up to a man like Joe Biden who served his country all those years. And I'm on the Joe Biden thing because I'm pissed about it because
Yeah.
I don't fly the Biden flag. I voted for him and I would have voted for him again. I voted for Kamala. But we need adults in the White House. And what we got is fucking Hulk Hogan in the Iron Sheik. I mean, come on, dude.
Well, with Joe Biden, you can say whatever you want to say about him, whether he was losing his mental capacity or not. But here's what I do know for a fact. In his first 2 years in office, when he had some free reign with the Congress, he accomplished more than most any other president in history. So whether he was in the right mind or not, somehow he found a way to do a very fucking good job. Donald Trump, that claims his cognitive uh, abilities are unparalleled, he's done nothing but fuck up since he got on January 20th. So, the proof is in the pudding. How did you do? You can tell me you're smarter than me or smarter than Joe Biden, but how did you do? How did you perform? And it's very clear that Donald Trump is failing at every turn. Every time he tries to do something, it goes to court and he loses. He's lost like 250 times. Just yesterday, the court said, yeah, you can't shut down the Department of Education. You just can't do it. Now, what will come out of that, I don't know. But Donald Trump claims he has all these capabilities, but he keeps getting shut down every time it goes to court.
Yeah, his thing is not to have his day in court. His thing is to just postpone.
Yeah,
Postpone. It's like I know people that I just got summoned for jury duty. I like it. I'm one of those freaks that I like the law. I studied the law in college and I like the law stuff. And us little mortals down here still have to obey the law.
right,
You
right.
sexually assault a woman, you go to jail. I mean, who knew? Um, but they always like, well, I'm going to put it off. I'm going to put it off. No, just get it over with. Rip that Band-Aid off and get it over with. Go to jury duty. And it's like, the only time I had to do it was when my brother passed away and I had to postpone it. But, 6 months later, I went to it. And they're always, well, I'm going to put off my taxes. I'm going to do all this stuff. That's what Trump does, and I've talked to people say, well, I haven't filed my taxes in, 4 or 5 years. I'm like, why? Oh, I'll get to it, and it's like, okay. And it's like, you got to take, and I think a lot of them are, looking, that's why they kind of like Trump is like, well, Trump's against the system and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, he's a felon and you bring that up and, they act like, you have three heads. They don't know what you did. And when you also tell them that, it was a convicted of, a jury, not a judge. Are we gonna like start arresting jurors that convict, like this? And
Yeah.
you look at, and I mean, Bob Menendez didn't he go to prison, him and his wife, for taking less than Trump did? But
Yeah. And she got
they
convicted and
didn't
she's
try
going
it.
to prison too.
Yeah, and it's just like, when's it gonna stop? When's it gonna get to the point to where enough is enough? Because it's just hard for me to take any advice from somebody that like, well, Jesus, like, don't tell me about Jesus if you voted for the guy that wanted to would deport him if he was here, call him a woke libtard and all that stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah, well, that's the thing that frustrates me about most Trumplafucks. After all we've been through, after everything we've seen, after everything we've heard, they vociferously still support him.
I don't
And
get it.
and and the only thing is that's my guy, that's my team. I'm going to stand with him no matter what, just to own the libtards. And that's well and good if you're playing kickball or something. But when you start losing your medical or your health care, you start losing jobs, you start getting higher prices. Are you still going to stand by Donald Trump? I think there's a certain faction of people that will because they're that stupid. But there's got to be a bunch of people going, "Hey, I didn't buy into this. I wasn't expecting this." Well, you were expecting something. You were expecting somebody to get hurt. It just didn't matter to you until it happened to you. And these
Yeah.
people are despicable. That's why I have no empathy for them if they realize that they fucked up and they want forgiveness. I can't give it to them because I don't trust them.
Yeah, I had somebody tell me that, well, if it doesn't affect me, I'm okay with it. I go, really? You're okay with that? There's enough in this country to share. We if we just didn't give it to everybody, and now I sound like a socialist, which if that's what a socialist is, if you can have enough food for everybody and not just more for some, hell, call me a socialist. I'm a socialist because I think everybody deserves a shot. America, this big American dream is sold to us. And for the longest time, it's like, yeah, you work hard, you can do anything into America. For guys like me and you, yeah, that's been dream. But for people that don't look like us, that hasn't been the case. So
Right.
there's a time in this country where it needs to change to where everybody gets that, not just the rich people, not just the white folks, everybody. And it's like, when they were asking Christy Nome if she knew what habeas corpus was, hell, I even know that. It's like bring the body forward. It's like, it's like, I'm trying to, what I say is habeas corpus is like something like bring the body forward to where you have a right to, what's the word for it, Mike? I'm losing my mind here.
Well, basically, what it
Due,
means is
due
you get
process.
due process, right?
Yes.
And she didn't know that that's what it was. Imagine that. The director of Homeland Security doesn't understand what habeas corpus means. She thought it meant that Donald Trump had a right to load people on a plane and send them out at will. Read the motherfucking Constitution for fuck's sake. Uh, the fact that we have somebody that stupid and she's not embarrassed by being exposed for being that stupid, or the Republicans aren't ashamed for having somebody that's in a power of leadership, in a position of leadership, to not know something like that. That's that's unforgivable. I mean, at the very least, the people that Donald Trump hires should understand the Constitution. Don't wrap yourself in the Constitution and then don't understand what the fuck it says.
I think it's funny now that, these Epstein files were, such hot topics and stuff. And,
Yeah.
and those, that Cash Patel and that other, I don't know, like Don something. I don't pay attention.
Dan Bongino.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to right-wing media. Now they're saying, "Oh no, he committed suicide." Did they get in there and see, like, when Epstein died, who was president? Oh, maybe that's too deep for us to dig.
Well, yeah,
And
that's exactly right. The Republicans wanted it out when Dan Bongino and Kash Patel said he committed suicide. That pissed off a lot of Trump-lefucks because they're all about the conspiracy theory, and it may be true that he didn't commit suicide, but it's
you could
funny.
have
Well, it's funny that they wanted it exposed, and even the Trump administration saying we need it exposed, we need this, and then all of a sudden they don't care. They're not talking about it. Sounds to me like they saw the list and they don't like what the list said. So now they're going to be quiet about it and not release it. That list needs to be released at some point, whether it's Democrats or Republicans on it
oh yeah.
that participated in this illegal activity. We need to know who it is. And whoever was involved, Democrat or Republican, they need to go down.
But I don't know if it would do any good if the list came out because Trump's on that list. Of course, Clinton
Yeah.
was on the list. And what's really sad is that girl that, she ended up dead. That's kind of weird. She was okay. If we were as crazy as MAGA believing these conspiracy theories, we could like, say a lot of stuff about Trump. Like, well, she was okay when Biden was president. I mean, that's just how they think. They think stupid shit that has no evidence. It's like, Joe Biden, elder abusing Joe, and they're hiding it. It's always a conspiracy. But even if they had video of Trump in the cell, often Epstein, they still wouldn't believe it because there's
No.
pictures of him with the guy. And who did they talk about at Diddy parties? They talk about Kamala there. It's like, well, I saw him with Trump too. And I'm not, saying that. I mean, just because you hang out with somebody doesn't mean you're one of them. I mean, I'm sure we've
No.
all, been around a criminal or two we didn't know about. It's just not in the public eye.
Yeah. Well, and for her to have committed suicide this many years after the situation,
Fishy.
one of two things happened. She was getting threatened and she couldn't handle it anymore, or somebody just went and did it because they were afraid she was going to talk. And when you're president of the United States, you've got a lot of authority to get a lot of people in to do whatever needs to be done. If you don't believe Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, why would you believe this woman committed suicide? This is too big. There are too many big name people there that are going to be exposed, and they're terrified of it. They're terrified of it. It needs to be exposed at some point in the near future. I think even Trump fucks are going to demand it.
It's something about I know that we've talked about Jesse Ventura before, but he said something one time that really stuck with me. He said something about because he's a big purveyor about JFK, how, something could
Yeah,
have happened, which there's just too many. He goes, when they found out they could do it to a president, they found out they could get away with it. And I totally believe that.
yeah, I do too.
I totally believe that. Like what they did to Maryland and all that stuff. But, that stuff goes on all the time. And I think if MAGA really opened their eyes to the truth, I mean, of course, we wouldn't be where we're at now because he would have lost.
Yeah,
But I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, yeah, there's going to be some that are falling off and they're hurting, but I mean, there's some of them willing to go down the ship with him. I mean, people in office too, and if we have to do that, I mean, it sucks for the ones of us that were paying attention and didn't vote for this crap. Sometimes I wish I could be just that dumb and just, oh, okay, I got to go to work today. Oh, okay, Trump's a good businessman. Oh, okay, Biden's a crook. I just wish I do try to get away from it every once in a while. I'm not as involved like as you and Eric are, like, because you guys are
yeah,
creators and you got to do that.
yeah.
And I appreciate it, but that's just not my thing. I'm more of a consumer. But, I wish sometimes I could be that way, but I've never been able to be that way. It's always been important to me or doing whatever. And yeah, sometimes I wish I was that stupid. Like, well, yeah, murder. I'm not that stupid maybe, but somebody just that goes around carefree, not really caring. But you got to pay attention, man, because we're in. What do they say? I'm getting tired of living through historic events in my life, man. It's
Yeah.
like enough,
Well,
enough.
you said something about somebody saying, "I don't care if it doesn't happen to me."
Yeah,
And I'll just say this: with me and my wife at 65 years of age, nothing's really going to change for us. We got our our pensions, Social Security, whatever. We've downsized. We don't have a lot of bills anymore. I'm not trying to find a job. Neither is my wife. So nothing's really going to change for us. But that's not why I bitch about it, because I'm terrified for my kids and my grandkids and other people's grandkids. And I feel like now that I'm on the downside of life here, if I'm in a position to try to at least speak out and do something to make it better for my kids, that's what I'd want to do. If you're willing to say, I only care about myself, fuck everybody else, you're a piece of shit. Whether you have kids or not, you should want to be able to leave this place in a better situation than when we found it. And I was born
Yes.
in 60, so we've got some possibilities to make it better than it was then.
I think I think we're headed towards something. It may not happen in our lifetimes, but I think we're America is too far apart. They're too divided
Yeah,
to really stay together. And like I said, I don't know if it'll happen in our part. I don't know if it's going to be a civil war. If it's a civil war, it's probably going to be more technology based than, like, running in the blue and the gray. And I think that, you're going to have your California sides and your New York sides. And if that's the case, the middle is gonna is die on the vine
yeah,
because it doesn't have the resources, New York and I remember people always talking about taxes and stuff. It's like, oh well, California is expensive to live. But yeah, because California has to supplement the rest of the country like New York. That's why they
right,
pay so many taxes. It's not just them. That's like, and what you told me last time or one of the times about how Texas is not a contributor, they're more of a consumer.
right.
And I guess living down here so much, either I started believing Greg Abbott's bullshit or the heat got to me. But yeah, you're gonna probably have, the California side of it, and those countries aren't gonna be able to survive. And it ain't like people are gonna be there, tracking wildlife to eat. It's gonna be the new way of life's not going to be, trading and bartering. It's going to be like technology based, crypto
Right.
will probably take off eventually when it's done right. But, I just see that America's not going to be united anymore. I mean, it's not really right now. I mean, I got little over, I got, a little over 6 years to retire. I'm leaving Texas because we're actually running out of water. And I've mentioned this before. There's a lake down it's a little town called Three Rivers, and it's called Choke Canyon. And I remember being a little kid growing up down there, you'd go swimming in there. Now you wouldn't go swimming there because there's gators everywhere.
Right.
But they were showing it now that it's dry, and they were like, "Well, why is it dry? Is it the heat? Never seen this before." It's like, no, they sold that water to frackers. So it's dry now because and I can send you a TikTok on it, but it's just like I remember growing up down there, it was like crazy. Plus the heat doesn't help, but they sold the water for fracking. And I was telling somebody, it's like, yeah, well, I hope the Republicans enjoy that, money when they can't eat it or drink it. But it's like we're totally raping this planet and devouring it. And yeah, and the Republicans have kids too. You don't want what's
Yeah.
best for them. I guess they don't care. A lot of them don't care about what happens to somebody else, including their own goddamn kids.
No, I don't think they care. And, it's always funny when you hear from Texas every so often, they go, we want to secede. Oh, you want
Of
to
course.
secede, huh? You are a taker state. So immediately you're going to be in money trouble when you separate. You're not going to have water. You're not going to have any help when the hurricanes hit you. Well, you don't now anyway. So what's the fucking difference? But these people are just blind to how bad a situation they're in. Like, I think I read something that in Mississippi, half the people in Mississippi are on Medicaid. So, what happens when they take the Medicaid away, or they cut Medicaid, or they limit who can use Medicaid? There are going to be millions of people that don't have health care that have had it for a long time. You got to wonder, are they going to feel proud about owning the libtards at that point?
Well, what'll happen is that this will get passed, and 4 years into it, we'll have a Democratic president, and these people that, believe Trump will blame that Democratic president. It'll be the same process over and over. So that's what we got to win big to make these changes. put them into law to where somebody didn't come along. And I'm, optimistic that this, I'm not, I'm not too excited what it's going to do to the America, but if it has, we have to do that to where it makes the Republicans not in charge anymore or destroys that party. And I speak as somebody as a former member of that party. I was sold a lot of bill of goods, but I'm not stupid enough to believe everything.
Right.
I'm a little slow sometimes. You hit me a couple of times in the head, I will wake up eventually. But yeah, if it takes that, but the Repu Democrats are going to have to win big. They're going to have to combine. They're going to have to get their shit together, and they're going to have to get their leader, and pretty fucking soon. I mean, we've had enough to. It's been close to 6 months. We've licked our wounds. Over 6 months, I guess. We've licked our wounds. We've done this stuff. We need to get a fucking leader up there. We don't need to be freaking, ambushing each other. We don't need to be talking about Biden anymore. Let him enjoy what years he's got left,
Yeah.
like all of us, who aren't in public service.
Right.
But get this shit
Um,
together.
if they pass this bill and they do cut Medicaid, obviously, ultimately Medicare, SNAP, and all of this shit, is that the red line where, when you talk about the Civil War, however that uh, um, manifests, is that the thing that's going to cause the Civil War or the fighting amongst these people? And I'm not talking about necessarily fighting in the streets, but it could resort to something like that. Um, as I've said before, Donald Trump, I think he's pissed off enough people around the world and in this country that he could be in danger like he had been in the past. And I'll be honest with you, when this all shakes out, it's not going to be a Democrat that goes after him, it's going to be another Republican because these are the people that are going to suffer mightily.
What scares me the most is that how we pissed everybody off, even Canada, our closest
Yeah.
ally. Why the fuck we do that? But if I mean, a lot of people, I don't know if they don't remember 9/11. That was a long time ago. I mean, we had outpouring support from people when that happened. Tony Blair, and, people reached out to us, and they're not going to do that now. And I know people say, well, we Canadians don't hate, all Americans. Well, you damn well might. You better,
Yeah.
because our country's coming for your country, so to speak. And I don't blame them at all. Um, I don't know. You talk about that red line, like you said earlier. We thought it was abortion.
Yeah.
I mean, women dying out in their cars. I mean, that's and she said that, and they just laughed at her for saying that. It happens. I don't know, Mike. I mean, I think some of them will never. They'll be on him forever, and they will be with him. And they're raising their kids to be that way. So you'll always have Trump-a-fucks generation after generation, because that's the way I was, hate to say it or not, you can, when you get away from your parents, that's when you kind of become your person, because, your parents are going
Right.
to influence you on what to vote for. My mom was a Democrat. My dad was a Republican. I voted for both. I identify more as a progressive now. But I was a conservative at one time, back when the party meant something. But Muhammad Ali said it best. He goes, if you're the same person at 50 you are at 30, you've learned nothing. And that's what these people that worship him, and that's what he's counting on. They don't leave that stuff. They have to be told what to do. That's why the thought of a dictator doesn't sound too bad for them. I
You know,
remember
leading
when,
leading up to the election, we were worried about what would happen if Donald Trump had won. Uh, and you got the people saying the sky's falling, the end is near. I have to say this: if we get to the 2026 midterms and the Republicans maintain control in the House and the Senate, then I'm ready to say we're fucking done here. We're
uh,
done, and that's unfortunate to say. I can't imagine that's going to happen because of the disaster that Donald Trump's going to be leaving behind. People have to be smarter than that in history. We've seen the switch back and forth from Republican to Democrat. They don't like the Democrats, so they vote Republican. The Republicans fuck it up, then the Democrats get voted in. If we keep doing that, we'll never gain any ground. But if by somehow, by hook or crook, the Republicans win in 2026, I'm afraid we're pretty well fucked without fighting in the streets.
yeah, because Yeah, I hate to think about that, but the only way that happens is if the Democrats let it happen like they did 2024. The Democrats let that happen.
Yeah.
People want to say, well, Elon Musk did this stuff, but what about the other elections that he was more worried about that Wisconsin one, and but that Wisconsin liberal still won. Was it Wisconsin?
Yeah. Supreme Court.
Supreme Court? Where was Skylink on that? I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people want to believe that their fellow Democrat voters weren't sexist or racist, but I think that proved it. I mean, we knew that on the Republican side. Not all Republicans are racist. I'm not saying that, but we found out a lot of from our party were sexist and racist. Because I
I
guarantee
will
you,
say I
I
will
still
say
think
this.
Biden would have won.
Yeah, I think so too. And then
Maybe
Kamala
he
could
should
have
have
taken over.
he should have won and then maybe stepped aside, or maybe stepped aside when she had like a year because we could see what it was like to give her that. But they didn't want to give her that way because they didn't want her to outshine him. And I don't think that's on Biden. I think that's on his handlers because
Oh,
there's a lot of stuff
absolutely.
Biden could. They did that with Trump. They did that with Biden and Obama. And they didn't like Biden. They hated Biden on a lot of shit because Biden said his words and he said it. I just think it really sucks for America that Joe wasn't able to run in 2016, 2015, 2016 or whatever
Right.
because with Bo dying, because I think he would have been a two-term president, and maybe we get, somebody after that. I don't know, maybe, Kamala or whatever. But I think people are going to have to. They're so poisoned against the government because that's how I was right. Well, the government doesn't know what they're doing. They want this stuff. They want, transgenders to have easy bake ovens in the cafeteria. I mean, they have all this shit going on to where they really fuck you up in the head when you're a kid. And so this anti-government stuff really fucks with you. That's why we had the Oklahoma City bombing. That's why we had the first World Trade Center bombing. There is a lot of anti-government thing, and I don't understand the terrorism so much to speak, but I can understand being frustrated. But I don't think with all these cuts, and we haven't seen them yet, but when your highways aren't fixed when you're in line at the DMZ because they fired everybody or your social security check runs late, you're going to realize how important government is. And the
Yeah.
government was a self-running machine until Musk and Trump got a hold of it. And we haven't begun to see what's going to really fuck us up. FEMA's coming, the hurricane season's coming, bridges start collapsing, and we're in for it. Maybe that'll wake them up, but
Well, here's the thing. If the federal government wants to send all the money back to the state,
yep.
why would we then send the federal money to them if we're not getting anything in return? I mean, it's like any kind of investment. If I'm putting money into something, I better get a return on investment. And if everything that the federal government has done is put back on the states, why not just leave that money in the states and fuck the federal government? You don't get to take our money and then take away services. But I guarantee you that they will still insist on the money.
Yeah, I think that's why they want to keep what's his name as is he the governor of New York or the mayor of New York?
Oh, yeah. Adams,
Is he the governor or mayor?
mayor of New York City.
Okay. Well, I know that Gavin Newsom has said that about, if they piss off especially with this bill, what they want to do, they piss off the blue states like California and New York, they may not send their money to the federal government. They're going to run out of money. So
Yeah.
it's like, and Gavin Newsom's been the only one that has really, challenged Trump on that. But like I noticed in this, big beautiful bill, who got $12 billion back for the border?
Yeah.
Texas did.
Yeah.
And you know who was probably instrumental in getting that done is John Cornyn. You can always tell when a Texas senator like Cornyn or Cruz is running for re-election, they do something for the state.
Right.
So, yeah, this bill is helping the red states but not the blue ones. And you're supposed to be you're supposed to be president for everybody, not just, your MAGA base. You're supposed to be everybody, not just, that's I'm American president for everybody, not just them. So,
Well, Donald Trump said that what's going on in the big bill uh, should hurt the blue states more than the red states. He wants to punish anybody that didn't vote for him,
so he
and
admits it.
he's all for. He's all for that. You know, something that happened yesterday that has gotten some news coverage, but I think it may end up being a bigger story than what it is those two Israeli ambassador staff from
Oh
the
yeah,
embassy that
were
were
killed.
killed. That to me is like the starting point for the way America is going to run in the future. People are just going to go to the street with guns and do what they want to do. You can understand why some Arab folks are angry with Israel now that Israel is bombing the piss out of uh, Gaza and planning to occupy Gaza for God knows how long. There was even a representative in our Congress that said they should just nuke Gaza.
Yeah, I
This
heard about
is
that.
the fucking this is the fucking attitude we're hearing from people in power in our government. And when people get pushed in a corner and they feel like they've got no way out, shit like that shooting is going to happen over and over and over again.
Yeah, and didn't Israel, I'm surprised Israel didn't have more pushback on Trump going over there because there's like rumors that Israel's about to bomb Iran. So
Yeah,
that's coming. And I saw some guy saying, well, he went over to Qatar because or not, was Qatar, wherever he went in the Middle East to keep Israel from doing that. I'm like, well, you're probably pissing Israel off. You know, you're probably going to piss Israel off, and the fact that because don't they support their biggest rival, or their rival's an understatement,
their
enemy?
enemy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly. Qatar has given Donald Trump uh, this brand new plane, which they accepted yesterday. The Pentagon accepted that plane. That's a done deal. We now have this plane, which is going to cost $1 billion to retrofit, and it's going to take years to do it. It's a bunch of shit. And Donald Trump went in there and begged for the fucking thing. Then they gave it to him. And of course, they're going to want something in return. The problem with this is Donald Trump did a couple of things when he was in the Middle East. Over and above collecting money, um, like a loan shark in Chicago in the 30s, he was over there collecting money. He got this plane. He's buddying up with Qatar, who is one of the biggest supporters of Hamas, which is Israel's enemy in this war. He went over and he decided that he was going to drop the sanctions on Syria, who is a mortal enemy of Israel. There's no way Israel's happy with Donald Trump at this point. And for me, what I see is happening is Donald Trump is trying to get Benjamin Netanyahu to get a peace deal because he wants the credit for cutting that peace deal. And Benjamin Netanyahu, as I've said all along, doesn't want the war to end because if the war ends, he's likely to go to jail.
Yep.
So for all the people that said Joe Biden wasn't doing anything, the most important thing Joe was doing to Benjamin Netanyahu, he had reins on Benjamin Netanyahu and he was pulling him back. He was stopping him from doing fucked up shit. Donald Trump just says, do whatever you want to do. And that's what I said would happen. They're going to let them do whatever they want to do. And it's going to be an absolute bloodbath in Gaza and in that war. So now Donald Trump isn't getting what he wants from Benjamin Netanyahu. So this is his way to get revenge. I'm going to buddy up with your enemies and see how you fucking like that. You better do what I want you to do. Otherwise, I'm going to give them weapons. It's just the same old game with Donald Trump. It's all about intimidation, and he always fails doing it.
Yep. Yeah. I heard about the dropping the sanctions on that. That can't make Putin too happy. So
No,
maybe he'll, but if somebody said that, well, maybe that'll be a good move because, Putin and, Syria won't be as in bed together, I guess, because they won't need Russia as much. But yeah, I mean, if that would have been Joe Biden doing that, going over there, I mean, the right would be losing their, how dare you go against Jesus' own country? I mean,
no.
it's just the same old shit. I'm so sick of it. I'm so And I see these things on TikTok where they're like, how, we're supposed to get along with MAGA now and, all this stuff and give Trump a chance. I go, oh, the Let's Go Brandon crowd now wants us to get along. And I'm done with it. I work with a lot of them and I'm like that and everything, but personal life, I don't hang out with them anymore or do anything. And that's really hard down here in Texas because there's going to come a time when they're going to laugh at stuff. They're going to say shit about Trump, like, oh, he was nothing. And then there's going to come a day when he's going to be a pariah. Probably eventually,
Absolutely.
a lot of this generation is going to have to die out, including Gen X who
Yeah.
voted for him. So I don't know, man. I try to be optimistic, and I think your podcast helps me do that. But I'm to the point to where, and I think a lot of people may have this too, that we're burned out, that we hear something happen and we're just not, it doesn't scare us anymore. It
Yeah.
doesn't, we're so numb to it. And I think probably that's why people maybe aren't responding so much or voting is because I don't know, they
They don't think it matters.
don't think, yeah, I don't think it matters, or they're too busy trying to make a living, trying to afford an apartment that's way overpriced. It's cheaper to get a house than it is an apartment. What kind of fucking deal is that?
Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. It's pretty ridiculous. I've said this before, and you have too, is that this is going to come to an end. And when it does, it's not going to end badly for Donald Trump or the people that supported him. It's just when. If you were to ask me on November 5th, after Donald Trump won, how long before he gets kicked to the curb and things start settling down a little bit, I would have said a couple months, maybe 3 months. But here we
Yeah.
are, much deeper into this, and they're giving away the fucking farm every time Donald Trump picks up his head and says, you got to do this, even though they know that it's wrong, that it's bad, and that it's going to hurt them. But they still do whatever he says. How many times does he have to kick their ass before they go, fucking enough?
Yeah, even so-called deficit hawks that, that gave all those Speaker of the Houses that, got rid of McCarthy and all that stuff are bowing to him, like Chip Roy and all them. And there was like one, I don't know what the guy's name, but he was Trump attacked him and he was like, see, I need money. He's attacking me. I was like, well, that's
Yeah.
a good way to do it. I mean, and they're saying, well, I'm a word for my family. Man, if somebody's threatening your fucking family, you go Liam Neeson on their ass.
Yeah,
You
no
don't bend
shit.
over and help them. Come
Yeah.
on. But there's
Well,
just there's no kahunas. They have no balls. Just
and people
none.
say that, when we talk about social media and stuff like that, there's a guy on TikTok that Old Soul asked me about. And the guy said, I said something about 8647 and the Secret Service came to my house. And she said, that's crazy. That's terrifying. So I looked at this guy. He's got 22,000 followers. I'm so cynical now that I'm looking at this guy going, this fucker's just going for clout. There's
Yeah.
no way with 21,000 followers that anybody ever even fucking heard that he said this. I've said 8647 tons of times. And it's not that I'm more important, but I've got a wider, bigger platform. If they were going to knock on somebody's door, they would knock on my door or knock on Good Trouble's door or Tom Powell's door, not this fucking guy with 21,000 fucking followers. This is what pisses me off more too. It's all about fear. I'm going to tell them this happened. It's a good story and
Oh yeah.
freak people out. Well, you don't freak me out because I'm not fucking buying it.
Yeah, and it's just with that, it's just hypocritical because they're getting upset about that. And I'm old enough to remember when Trump, tweeted that picture of Biden on the back of the truck where he was handcuffed and gagged and everything like that. And
Yeah,
it's the I always say this, the party of fuck your feelings sure get their feelings hurt a lot.
they sure
And
do. They sure
it's
do.
just they're just a bunch of snowflakes, and they're and I don't know, man. I mean, I hope we wake up. I hope we get this, but I'm with you, man. If 2026 goes, I don't know if there's any hope for us. I
Yeah,
mean, if that happens, that means either we've just given up on the democratic process and in the fascists have won. Actually, the one more thing about Texas, they just passed something in the legislature to where they are going to speak about the dangers of communism and socialism, but not fascism.
oh no, fascism is
Does that tell
cool.
you anything right there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's fucking ridiculous. And you know, I'm usually pretty positive, and I'm
Oh
under
yeah.
the belief that this thing we're going through now will end. It always
Yes.
does. It will end. But I become less confident, like you said, because of November 5th. Every ounce of logic and common sense I had told me Kamala would win and that we would win pretty well in the House and maybe even the Senate.
You
Every
should have.
bit of common sense and logic I could muster told me that. And then when it didn't happen and my wife says, "What the fuck's going on?" I go, "I don't get it." I use logic and common sense, and apparently that isn't a thing in this country anymore. So when we look at the midterms and all the things that are happening, common sense and logic tell me that they're going to get their ass kicked in the midterms. And we're seeing it in some of the local elections too. But there's part of me that says, well, that's what I thought last time. Is common sense and logic even a thing anymore? I don't know.
I think
I've got to go with that. I've got to hope for that. I've got to plan for that. But I've been disappointed.
I think the midterms will be fine because we won midterm races and stuff. I what have told myself, and maybe I'm making this up. I just think Trump's a once in a lifetime cult of personality, that he's just
Yeah.
bigger than anybody else in the game. And that's why Joe Biden deserves more credit than he gets, is because he's the only one that's beat him in a presidential election. So I'm hoping that that's it, because once Trump's gone, MAGA will be gone. I mean, we thought this in the
Yeah.
first term. I mean, there's a lot of people that said that, we might as well have just let Trump win the second one and, he'd be gone by now. But I don't know how fucked up more this country would be if that was the case.
Well,
But
after the first term, MAGA did kind of fade away a little bit,
yeah,
up until the time Kevin McCarthy went down there and pulled him back in the fold, and then it got more fervent and more hyperbolic, and it just started rolling down the hill like a snowball, gaining speed. The thing about it is though that the amount of people in MAGA isn't getting bigger; it's getting smaller.
yeah,
They just happen to be loud and they happen to be in your face. So I hope the Democrats take that into consideration. They don't have a majority. They're loud. So maybe they ought to try the same thing and be loud themselves and hammer these fuckers. I mean, it's looking like they're doing it more and more, but they've got to hit it even harder than they are.
yeah, we got to get a leader. We got to get somebody up as the face of our party because, I mean, I like Bernie, but his time is gone.
Yeah,
AOC, she may not be the one. I mean, who's going to be the one? I mean, I see, like I said, we talked earlier about Pete. I don't know right now. I don't know who I would, and I keep hearing about how we have a chance to get this seat in Texas. Cornyn runs against Paxton. I don't know who's going to run. I don't want Beto to run,
no,
and Colin Allred either. He just lost to Ted Cruz. I mean, we need some new blood, and it's not like the Democrat bench doesn't have any.
right.
But does a Jasmine Crockett, run for that Senate seat? She didn't have the experience yet, probably. But does Ken Paxton? Well, Ken Paxton. There's a lot I could say about that guy, but I don't know who is there, but I'm optimistic that there's coming a day when the Republican Party will die and MAGA will bring it down, and they'll start focusing on other. Maybe there rises a moderate Republican thing out of there, because I don't want one. I don't want one party rule on anything. I think we need it a little bit while the Democrats get everything done, but you always need competition to keep you honest.
Yeah. Well, you know, we had the Tea Party and that died,
Oh
but
God.
we let it smolder and it comes back as a worse inflammation in terms of MAGA. So we need to learn a lesson too. When we put this down, we need to put it down permanently. We can't let anything survive of MAGA when it's on its way out. We can't be friendly. We can't be compassionate and say, oh, come on in. We leave one cell of that fucking cancer there, it will spread again. Probably after we're dead, but it will spread again and it will be a problem. If we're going to put this down, we need to put it down permanently.
I remember when I voted Republican, and I remember when I knew that the Republican Party wasn't for me anymore. I didn't vote for Obama either time because I was still believing in the, this, conservative thing, and I was probably still following the Christian nationalist stuff. Not devoutly, I must say, because I was a young man. And so when I knew the party was not for me anymore is when I saw what the Tea Party was doing when they were hanging effigies of
Yeah,
Obama, when they were, doing stuff, when they were trying to convince me that the Civil War wasn't about slavery, that Lincoln was a traitor. I was like, where the hell did this come from? And that's what a lot of
yeah,
them believe. You notice the
yeah,
Republicans don't talk anymore about, Lincoln. They
yeah,
talk about Trump. They don't even talk about Reagan anymore. It's about Trump. And he's that guy that when they embraced him, I saw a lot of my friends didn't believe like I did. A lot of them ask me now, what happened to you? And I go, Trump. I go, if you can't, you can't see the boogeyman coming up behind you, you're gonna get murdered, dude.
yeah,
You gotta pay attention to your surroundings. You just don't vote for an R or a D, you
yeah,
know. But that's when I knew it wasn't for me, is just because it's like that doesn't represent me. And I found out a lot about my friend, a lot of so-called friends too, that were like, wow. I've always heard that about the racism, but I grew up around it, so I mean, it never occurred to me because, that, you could have people that, were a minority to be racist against other minorities.
yeah,
And it's just
absolutely.
like, but, and I grew up around all these people that, were Christians and they loved Christ, but they're like embracing Nazism now. It's like, don't you realize who the main guy was? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. It seems a
Absolutely.
little off to me, but
It does. Well, Jace, I'm going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for coming on. Kind of short notice, but I wanted to get your point of view on some of the shit that's going on because there's a lot of unreasonable minds out there on social media, and it's nice to get somebody who's normal to listen to. And I know
you know,
people appreciate that.
Mike, I've been called a lot of things in my life. Normal was never one of them. So that's a first
Yeah.
for me. I
Well,
appreciate
consider
you
the
having me on. It's been a pleasure, as always.
well when I call you normal, you have to consider the source. You know. I don't classify myself as normal either. So, well, thank you for coming on. Those of you listening, thanks for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.